If you're a regular listener of the podcast, you are probably expecting our usual fortnightly threat update this week. However, we're doing something a little different. February 17th through March 3rd is Chinese New Year, and some of our usual team are off learning about and celebrating the Year of the Horse. So instead of the usual update, I thought I would provide you with a useful summary of one of the most important, highly anticipated documents in the world of risk. The World Economic Forum's Global Risk Report 2026. This 102-page beast is key bedtime reading for our team at Unbreakable Ventures. But we're aware not everyone has time to decipher and decode such a report. That's where I come in, and hopefully it's why you subscribe. In this episode, I'm going to pick apart some of the key highlights and statistics you need to know from the report. We're going to understand what the data is really telling us and how to use that information practically. And we're going to explore some potential early bird mitigation steps your team can take as we head deeper into the year. It's Tuesday, the 24th of February, and we're analysing the World Economic Forum's Global Risk Report. So grab a coffee and let's get into it. %. That is the share of global experts who expect calm over the next 2 years. 1% out of over 1,300 surveyed. The World Economic Forum has just released its 21st Global Risk Report. And this year, the tone has shifted. Previous editions talked about cooperation under pressure. This one talks about cooperation crumbling. There is a quote circulating in policy circles right now. It comes from the Italian philosopher Antonio Gramsci, written in 1929 while he was imprisoned under Mussolini. The old world is dying and the new world struggles to be born. Now is the time of monsters, he wrote in his prison cell. That quote captures 2026 with uncomfortable precision. Today we are going to unpack the WEF report, what the experts are most worried about, what has changed from last year, and critically, what you can do about it. One statistic stood out to me more than any other, though. Adverse outcomes of AI technologies showed the sharpest climb of any single risk in this year's report. It rose from number 30 in the short-term outlook to number 5 over the decade. No other risk moved that far, that fast, but we will come back to that. First, let us look at the big picture. The WEF calls this the age of competition. That framing matters. For years, reports like this have warned about risks to the global order. But this year, the language is different, starker, blunter. 50% of respondents now expect a turbulent or stormy global outlook over the next 2 years. That is up 14 percentage points from last year. When you extend the horizon to 10 years, 57% expect the same. And again, only 1% expect calm. What is driving this shift? 3 forces are converging: geoeconomic confrontation, economic fragility, and technological acceleration. Each one feeds the others. Let us start with geopolitics. 68% of experts now describe the emerging global order as multipolar or fragmented. That is up 4 percentage points from last year, and only 6% expect a return to a US-led rules-based international order. Canada's Prime Minister Mark Carney put this bluntly at Davos, just days after the report was released.
The multilateral institutions on which the middle powers have relied, the WTO, the UN, the COP, the architecture, the very architecture of collective problem solving are under threat.
He went further.
But when we only negotiate bilaterally with a hegemon, we negotiate from weakness. We accept what's offered. We compete with each other to be the most accommodating. This is not sovereignty. It's the performance of sovereignty while accepting subordination.
Strong words, and they landed differently depending on where you sit in the world. For those of us in Oceania and ASEAN, Carney's message resonates. Middle powers, deeply integrated into global supply chains. navigating tensions between major economies, exposed to decisions made elsewhere. His line about being at the table or on the menu is not abstract. It is operational reality for businesses across this region. So what are the experts most worried about right now? Geoeconomic confrontation sits at number 1. 18% of respondents selected it as the risk most likely to trigger a global crisis this year. That is a jump of 8 positions from last year. This is not just about tariffs or trade disputes. It is about the weaponization of economic tools, sanctions, export controls, supply chain leverage, finance as coercion. At number 2, state-based armed conflict. 14% of respondents. Wars in Ukraine and the Middle East continue, and the spillover effects from energy prices to refugee flows to shipping disruptions are rippling outward. Number 3 is extreme weather events. Still in the top 5, but notably it dropped from number 2 last year. Number 4, societal polarization. Streets versus elites. Ideological divides deepening within countries, not just between them. Number 5, misinformation and disinformation, amplified by AI, eroding trust in institutions, media, and each other. Here is what caught my attention. Economic risks showed the largest collective increase in ranking of any category. Economic downturn jumped 8 positions. Inflation also jumped 8 positions. The risk of an asset bubble burst rose 7 places. Debt concerns, market volatility, the sense that the financial system is more fragile than the headline numbers suggest. And 2 new entrants made the top 10 this year. Adverse outcomes of AI at number 8, cyber insecurity at number 9. These are not separate risks. They are interconnected. Geoeconomic confrontation disrupts supply chains, which creates economic pressure, which fuels societal polarization, which gets amplified by misinformation. The system feeds on itself.
We attribute the success of it. Who can save mankind? Thanks for joining us on this episode.
Now let us shift the lens. What happens when we look out to 2036? The picture appears to change. Environmental risks, which dropped in the short-term rankings, reclaim the top positions over the decade. Extreme weather events at number 1, biodiversity loss and ecosystem collapse at number 2, critical change to Earth systems at number 3. This tells us something important. The world is in reactive mode. When immediate crises dominate attention, wars, economic instability, AI disruption. Longer-term risks get deprioritized, pushed down the list, and dealt with later. The problem is those risks do not wait, they compound. We see this pattern in the data. Environmental risks are less visual and less confronting than a trade war headline or an AI breakthrough. But they remain the most severe threats over the decade. Ignoring them now accelerates the cost later. Short-termism is itself a risk. And for professionals and boards stuck in reactive mode, this is a trap. You cannot stay there for long, not if you want to be ahead of what is coming. The other standout in the long-term rankings is AI. Adverse outcomes of AI technologies climbs from number 30 in the short term to number 5 over the decade. That is the sharpest rise of any single risk in this year's report. Why is that then? Labour market disruption, autonomous systems, loss of human control, and increasingly AI in military applications where speed outpaces human decision-making. The WEF is clear, AI is moving fast, governance is not keeping pace. The report's second chapter dives into 6 in-depth themes. I want to highlight 5 that matter most for business leaders. First, multipolarity without multilateralism. Countries are going it alone. The cooperative frameworks that used to manage global problems are weakening, and nothing is replacing them. No new architecture, no shared rules, just fragmentation. For businesses, this means more friction, more uncertainty, fewer guarantees that yesterday's trade relationships will hold tomorrow. Second, values at war. Ideological divides are deepening, and technology, especially social media and AI, is amplifying those divisions rather than bridging them. Public discourse is fragmenting, consensus is harder to build, and the erosion of shared truth makes collective action more difficult. Third, an economic reckoning. Debt is piling up. Governments, corporations, households. Asset bubbles may be forming in AI-related equities and infrastructure. And the gap between those doing well and those struggling is widening. K-shaped economies are becoming entrenched. The WEF warns that if investor sentiment shifts, if concerns about funding mechanisms and debt levels outweigh excitement about future revenues, a correction could follow, one like we've never seen before. Fourth, infrastructure endangered. Aging systems are under pressure. Climate stress, underinvestment, supply chain choke points. From energy grids to ports to data centers, the physical backbone of the global economy is more vulnerable than it appears. For APAC and ASEAN specifically, this matters. The region's growth depends on infrastructure that is increasingly strained. Fifth, AI at large. AI is transforming labor markets, societies, and security. Jobs are at risk. Autonomous systems are raising questions about control and accountability, and the speed of deployment is outpacing the development of guardrails. The report notes that AI system failures could propagate through entire chains of command. An automated early warning system misinterpreting a signal could trigger defensive responses from an adversary's AI system. Conflict started by technical error rather than strategic intent. That is not science fiction. That is scenario planning. Let me bring this back to practical application. You should be concerned if your supply chain relies on geopolitically sensitive regions or single points of failure. Geoeconomic confrontation is now the number one risk. Trade weaponization and supply chain leverage are accelerating. You should be concerned if your business model depends on stable trade policy or cross-border data flows. Multilateral frameworks are weakening. Expect more friction. You should be concerned if you operate critical infrastructure or rely heavily on it. Aging systems, climate stress, and underinvestment create compounding vulnerabilities. You should be concerned if you have not stress tested for economic downturn scenarios in 3 or more years. Economic risks are climbing fast. Debt, inflation, and asset bubble concerns are real. And you should be concerned if you lack a position on AI governance or cyber resilience. Both risks are now in the top 10. Boards and leadership teams need clarity. So, what can you do? Review and diversify your supply chain dependencies. Map your exposure to high-risk regions and identify alternatives. Update your crisis management and business continuity plans. Include geopolitical scenarios, not just natural disasters or IT failures. Conduct a cyber resilience assessment. Pay attention to AI, adjacent vulnerabilities, and third-party risk. Scenario plan for economic volatility. Model inflation persistence, asset price corrections, or credit tightening. And engage your leadership on AI policy. Internal governance and external regulatory readiness should be on the board agenda this year. If you are unsure where to start, seek a second opinion. Work with an advisory that understands cross-disciplinary risk, because the risks are interconnected. Your response should be too. Let me leave you with this. 1% of experts expect calm. 1%. So what do they know that the other 99% do not? Whatever it is, it likely stems from a deep level of preparation. Confidence in their abilities proven by validation activities. They have stress tested, they have diversified, they have accepted uncertainty as a constant and built systems to manage it. The future is not fixed. The WEF makes that clear. The report's final message is that order can be rebuilt if nations choose strategic collaboration, even amid competition. The decisions we make today shape what comes next. But here is the uncomfortable truth. If you are stuck in reactive mode, responding to crisis after crisis, without building capacity to anticipate what is coming, You are not shaping the future. You are being shaped by it. Be the 1% in 2026.
That's it for today's update. If you need help navigating these threats or building a plan to protect your business, the same advisors who collate these insights are here to help. Head over to unbreakableventures.com to book a complimentary chat online with one of them. And if you found this resource useful, consider subscribing to Unbreakable Ventures or sharing the article with your network. After all, resilience is about community and communication. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, stay safe.
Unbreakable Ventures is brought to you by the Senior Advisory Team at Fixing, a boutique resilience advisory based in the Oceania, ASEAN and India regions. Special thanks to our sponsor and Europe's leading SaaS provider for resilience software, F24. Our resources are researched and published by industry specialists across New Zealand, Australia, Malaysia and the UK. This podcast provides advice and opinion on disaster recovery and the threat landscape. The content is not a substitute for expert guidance during a crisis. Unbreakable Ventures is trademarked by Fixing Consulting Partners, a Fixing Group company.